out there in banjo land? Mike Hedding here, coming to you today with another detailed backup lesson, this time for St. Anne's Reel in the key of D. I had my buddy Eric Christopher record a few more fiddle tracks, and these are really fun to create backup lessons to. We're in the key of D, but we're just going to keep the banjo in standard G tuning, but we're going to be thinking and playing in the key of D. I always like to keep the banjo in standard tuning whenever possible. We've got 3 times through the backup, so a whole bunch of tab to learn. And I wouldn't recommend memorizing all this tab. I think it's too much. I think it's over 90 measures of tab. So I wouldn't look at this as a lesson to memorize, but I would look at this lesson as a reference point for backup that you want to play in the key of D. Eventually you can memorize maybe a few sections of this and apply it to another song that you want to play backup to. That's kind of the goal of this lesson. But I will break down all 3 versions note for note, just like I played at the beginning, show you all my tips and tricks, and I'll also include banjo-only tracks, fiddle-only tracks, and then a track with them combined as well. So if you want to practice along with just the fiddle or just the banjo, you'll have to be able to do that as well. All right, let's jump into backup version number 1. All right, let's start breaking down this A part backup for St. Anne's Reel. So let's take it 8 measures at a time. So the A part and the B part are each 16 measures in length. So let's take it 8 measures at a time. That'll be like halfway through the A part. Let's play those first 8 measures. Here we go. I'll do that really slow. Okay, so in our backup, there's actually no pickup. You hear Eric does a little shuffle bowing to start the song, but we're actually going to come in right when he starts playing the A part. And we're going to do, I'm just doing a 2-finger D chord. I've got my index finger on the 2nd fret of the 3rd string, my middle finger on the 3rd fret of the 2nd string. It's basically this chord, this full D chord. I'm just leaving my ring finger and pinky off. I like having those open D strings. It kind of fills it up. And then we're going to use one of my favorite rolls just for kind of a rhythmic backup. We're going to hit your thumb on the 4th string twice. And then hit your middle finger on the 1st string. And then roll forward. So it's thumb, index, middle is what I did there. 3 strings, 3, 2, 1. So you have... I'm just looping measure 1. That roll, it's very rhythmic. You know, if you speed it up a little bit, you can hear it. It's also a great way to just kind of set the tempo of the song. You get that low root note D, which is nice. So that's what we're doing for measure 1. And then what I like to do here is I take off my middle finger, and I just helps me reach. And then I put my ring finger on the 4th fret of the 4th string. We're going to do a forward reverse roll. Keep your index finger down. Again, we're kind of working out of this 4-finger D shape, except we're just doing different combinations. So we're starting with these 2 fingers, and now we're going to these 2 fingers, right? Same chord, we're just modifying the voicing of it, really, is what we're doing. Just looping 1 and 2. We're doing there is we're actually going to we're setting up going to the G chord there by using this 4th fret, which is the F sharp, the 3rd note of the D major scale, which leads into our 4 chord G. So you hear that little, so we're setting up that G chord by using that F sharp. So they call that voice leading, where we're basically setting up that next chord kind of with the harmony. That 3rd note really wants to lead up to that 4th note of the scale. Right? So sometimes those chord voicings, which ones you use, can be important, especially if you're kind of thinking on a slightly more advanced level. We're actually embedding a little bass walk into that phrase and into that line. So that's kind of a cool little underlying thing. You know, you don't have to understand that, but it just, a little bit of music theory there can go a long way. So we have, now just take your ring finger and slide it up from 4 to 5, do a forward reverse roll. And then I go back down to the 2nd fret, just like a little lick. And then back to the open D to our rhythmic roll. We're going to go back to that roll a lot in measure 4, so let's just call that our rhythmic roll, because we're going to use that one a whole bunch. So we have, same idea there. So what do we do on the G chord? We slid into our G, right? And then we use this note right here, which is outside of the G. It's actually the E note, so it's not in the it's not in the G chord tones, but we're using this note to lead back to our D, right? So we have, hear how that helps it lead back. And then measure 5, just another classic D roll, just thumb on the 4th string, and then 2 forward rolls, 3, 2, 1 are the strings, TIM twice. And then that roll to set up the G again, so 4th fret, I take my ring finger off, forward reverse roll. The other thing you can notice there is how we're not using the 5th string like we might in G. We're just staying on that 4th string, right there. And then slide up into a G, 5th string, and then backwards roll on an A chord. So I'm just going to bar my 1st finger on the top 3 strings, and I'm using the side of my finger, not the flat part. Use the side of your finger, not right here. That's going to help you get a better tone. So you can see I'm kind of turning my hand. And then take your hand off and open 1st string. So you slide up. So that's a quick G, A, D. So it's a half measure of G. That's where that forward reverse roll works good, because we do a forward on the G, reverse on the A, and then back to D. And then just 2 forward rolls. So we have, so that's halfway through the A part. Not too hard, so let's play that whole part. Here we go. Repeat that same chord structure for the 2nd half of the A part. It's exactly the same. So start in measure 9. Same. You could go back up and play measures 1 through 8 again if you wanted to, but here's a variation. So we have forward reverse roll. I'm just going to do a 1-finger D this time. So pretty easy. And then that same F sharp over D chord shape that we've used, except this time we're going to do a forward roll. So we have, just a variation. Instead of doing the forward reverse roll like we did in measures 2 and 6, we're just doing a forward roll just to mix it up. And then same thing, slide into your G, 4 to 5 slide. So I'm doing strings 4, 3, 1 there, TIM while sliding. And then go up and do strings 3, 2, 1, another forward roll. And then back down to the 2nd fret, and then open. It's just a variation on measure 3. So you have, so not too hard. Then back into that forward reverse roll, back to that 1-finger D. And then forward roll on a D. Put your middle finger back down. And another forward roll on that F sharp D. So again, notice how we're going from this shape to this shape. It's both two versions of D, just different. We're voicing it differently. It also helps keep it interesting to you as the player and interesting to the listener, right? Because we're not just rolling on an open D the whole time. So your ear hears that pitch change even though we're staying on a D. Half measure of G, half measure of A, forward reverse roll again. And then just a slightly different roll here. And then back to the low D. So the first half of the A we rolled and then went backwards, paused there, and then used the high D, right? To end. The second time we rolled and then use the low D. So that's another thing you can think about, right? You have your low D to resolve on, or you have your first string to resolve on. So you can pick either one, right? Or, right? So just, again, giving you more options to think about. But the resolving it there is really important, right? So that's the second half of the A part. Let's play through that. Notice between the two A parts, we essentially use the same chord left-hand shapes. The only difference is we changed some forward rolls to forward reverse rolls, and vice versa. We changed some forward reverse rolls to forward rolls. That's all we really did there. And then we just really mixed up the rolls, all we did there. So remember, on these old tunes, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. Keep it simple. Just modify the right hand very slightly.